Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. According to Michael Mann's hockey stick, the year 1921 was one of the coldest years of the last millennium. The press and government agencies tell us that a cold climate is a safe climate. The organization 350.org says, countless scientists, climate experts, and government officials agree that 350 parts per million is the safe level of carbon dioxide. In 1921, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were between 300 and 310 parts per million, which is well below the safe level of 350. We've seen the official government story. Now let's look at what was actually going on in 1921. New York Herald, Sunday, September 4th, 1921. Death for millions in 1921's record heat wave. The great heat wave, which has spread over the world during the present summer, has no parallel in history. Lake Morad in Switzerland dried up, burying the foundations of lake dwellers' homes built during the Stone Age. Let's compare Lake Morad in 1921 to what it looks like now. It appears that the climate in Switzerland has improved quite a bit over the past century. Daily Telegraph, Thursday, August 4th, 1921, the worst disaster in history. And this is shortly after 30 million people died in World War I and 50 million people died from the Spanish flu. Here's an ad from Save the Children in 1921. Grim tragedy of famine-stricken Russia. Millions of babes slowly and painfully dying from starvation. That doesn't sound like a very safe climate. New York Times, October 3rd, 1921. New record for 50 years. Many disasters of recent months ascribed to high temperatures and lack of moisture. The New York Times said Earth had a fever manifested in a worldwide heat wave of unusual length and intensity. 2 million Koreans were starving in Manchuria, and drought was killing fish in the River Seine. The New York Times reported persistent higher temperatures which began in August 1920. London had an unprecedented heat wave during October 1921, with 7 consecutive days over 75 degrees, reaching 84 degrees on October 6th. Even the climate alarmist Guardian admits there was an extraordinary drought in England during 1921. The only other year besides 1921 when London got over 80 degrees was 1859. The years 1859 and 1921 also had 2 of the largest solar storms ever recorded. The May 15, 1921 solar storm brought the auroras all the way to the Mexico border. The New York Times said that the sunspot aurora shut down electronic communications. Unprecedented disturbance is attributed to solar manifestations. Broadway lights dimmed. Theater crowds returning home amazed at the brilliancy of the skies. Solar explosion bombards Earth. Sunspot credited with rail tie-up. A few days after the solar storm of May 1921, Pueblo, Colorado experienced one of the deadliest floods in U.S. history. The San Francisco Examiner reported that the drought was worldwide and caused Eskimos to throw away their furs and organize bathing parties. In England, Ireland, France, and Spain, there was so little rain from January until August that an unprecedented drought arose. Scientists blamed the disastrous heating drought of 1921 on the solar system passing through a vast unseen cosmic cloud at a time when sunspots were hottest. The Arctic was rapidly melting with hitherto unheard of high temperatures in that part of the Earth's surface. It was so warm in 1921 that no ice formed around Spitsbergen all winter. Explorer Stephenson reported that the ice between the North Pole and Alaska was young, thin, moving, rotten ice. Glacier National Park was melting so quickly that experts predicted the ice would be gone by the year 1950. Same thing was occurring in the Arctic. Many old landmarks are so changed as to be unrecognizable. Where formerly great masses of ice were found, there are now often moraines, accumulations of earth and stones. At many points where glaciers formerly extended far into the sea, they have entirely disappeared. Let's go back to where we started, which was Michael Mann's hockey stick. He showed 1921 as being one of the coldest years on record. NASA shows the same thing. 1921 was a very cold year. But history tells us that 1921 was a very hot year. So let's look now at how NASA and NOAA created their nonsensical graphs. In 1989, NOAA's longtime head of climate analysis, Tom Carl, reported that most global warming occurred before 1919 and that Earth actually cooled from 1921 to 1979. He knew that 1921 was a very hot year. In 1989, NOAA knew that most global warming occurred between 1881 and 1919, but now they show that same time period cooling. And NOAA has also reversed the cooling trend from 1921 to 1979 and turned it into a warming trend. In 1999, NASA showed that 1921 was the second hottest year on record in the United States after 1934. But NASA has since altered the U.S. temperature data and turned a long-term cooling trend into a warming trend. 10 years ago, NOAA knew that 1921 was the hottest year on record in Texas. But NOAA has since erased the heat of 1921 in Texas and made it much cooler. On April 23, 2012, the National Climatic Data Center showed 1921 as the hottest year in Texas. But that didn't suit the global warming agenda, so they erased the heat of the past. The blue line shows measured Texas temperatures, with 1921 being the hottest year. But after NOAA tampers with the data, they turn a long-term cooling trend into a long-term warming trend. In order to create this fraud, the National Climatic Data Center has cooled Texas temperatures from 1921 by 2.5 degrees. The record for the number of 90-degree days in Texas occurred at Encino in 1921, when they had 224 days over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Michigan had their longest stretch of 90-degree days from June 30th to July 15th, 1921, when they were over 90 degrees every single day. Before data tampering by NOAA, 1921 was the hottest year on record in Delaware, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Mississippi, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia. All of those records have been erased. Data tampering and rewriting history by government agencies doesn't do anything to help the millions of people who are suffering and dying during 1921's record heatwave. Michael Mann's hockey stick bears no resemblance to reality, yet it has become the basis of government policy. Joseph Goebbels said, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such a time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and/or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state." The climate scam has no basis in reality, so we're bombarded with propaganda and dissent is repressed. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on the climate scam for more than 15 years. And now he has 4 beautiful, rapidly growing children. You can visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com.